Hello, and welcome to Boss Raid, the show where we take an in-depth look at all the bosses in a video game. Today, we'll be looking at the bosses of Kingdom Hearts 3. This highly anticipated true sequel to the main line of Square Enix's Kingdom Hearts series was released in early 2019 and, to my delight, eventually found its way to PC. It resolves many of the intersecting storylines from the multiple games, and while this video won't be focused on that aspect, some of the later boss fights would obviously be impossible to show without some spoilers, so if that bothers you, consider this your warning. Combat in this game works similarly to how it did in the previous titles, but with a few changes here and there. While a large percent of fighting involves just running around and smacking things with your keyblade until it dies, there's also magic to use: fire, lightning, cure, the usual. In-battle commands make a return, and while there are many that are applicable in specific circumstances, there are also many new commands that can be used almost any time provided you've filled up the appropriate meter. Most of them take on the form of a famous Disney ride repurposed to cause death and destruction of Heartless, so it's okay. Forms are back, and this time are dependent on the type of keyblade you're currently wielding. These forms come with their own situation commands, again provided your meters are filled. There are also summons, but honestly I didn't use them, so I can't speak to their helpfulness. As usual, we venture with Sora around all the different worlds, each usually culminating with a boss fight, with several smaller mini-bosses along the way. Sometimes the line between mini-boss and glorified regular monster is a bit blurred, but I decided to include anything that I thought was notable and skipped those that were less so. So, let's get to it. Our first boss, does this one really count? It's a very familiar looking giant Heartless in the game's beginning tutorial section. Darside. Darside has a few attacks. It can reach into the ground, causing a large shockwave. It continues by pulling out this dark orb thing that can damage you if you touch it. It then tosses the orb into the sky, making it rain down these damaging orbs for a while that can be a nuisance while trying to attack. They can be attacked or blocked away though. It can shoot a 3-volley projectile attack, which can also be reflected back with a block to damage the boss. This attack usually follows the end of an orb rain. Finally, it can slam a fist into the ground, causing a shockwave and spawning a few smaller Heartless. The idea here is just to attack the hands until it dies. The first proper mini-boss fight might be the Rock Titan. However, this fight is more like an interactive cutscene. Before even engaging, you have to climb up the sheer cliff, dodging the falling rocks that it throws at you. For the first half of the fight, you simply hack at its feet. They have separate health bars, so you'll have to take out both feet fully. Rock Titan also has two attacks here: stomping down with one foot, which can make rocks rise and do damage, or stomping alternatively with both feet, which again can make rocks rise and may also push you off the edge, making it so that you have to climb again against the falling rocks. After the feet are taken out, you're prompted to climb up the Titan and attack the head. You can also activate a situation command, or an SC, here, in which you ride around in a train coaster thing and can shoot at the Titan with fireworks, occasionally shooting at the Titan's fist to counter a punching attack. Doing this is more interesting than just attacking the head, but much slower, as the train's firework attack does abysmal damage. Either way, once its HP is depleted in this form, the Rock Titan is defeated. Shortly thereafter, we now face 3 more Titans. In the first half of the battle, we fight the Ice and Fire Titan, while the Wind Titan blows us around from the background. You can climb up the large rock formation in the middle of the arena, but I didn't realize this until the battle was almost over, so for the most part I used range attacks and situation commands. The Ice Titan doesn't do much. It can shoot an ice beam and stomp down to make icicles shoot out from the ground. The bigger threat, it seemed, was the Fire Titan, who can also shoot his own breath beam. Both beams can interrupt attacks, but the fire beam also leaves us in a temporary state in which we have no control over Sora as he bounces around, kind of like Mario on lava on the Nintendo 64. Fire Titan can also rain down fireballs, which can be hard to dodge. The Fire Titan also likes to move around a lot, making it harder to land attacks. Once both Titans are defeated, we move to the second half of the battle, in which we fight the Tornado Titan. It will occasionally try to throw chunks of Olympian buildings at us. It can also launch us into the air and shoot fireballs and even more building chunks at us as we descend. Though it can be attacked on the ground, a majority of the fight takes place in the air. It has a pushback attack and will again shoot out fireballs. I actually finished it off with the Blaster Blaze situation command, which seemed a little unfair as it just sat there as a giant target with no way to really defend itself. Once it's done, Hercules launches all of them into space, killing them all in a brutal explosion. High fives all around. Yay, murder. There are a few mini-bosses before we get here, such as the Demon Tower and the Supreme Smasher, but they're not really significant, so I'll skip talking about them. Eventually we find our way to a proper mid-boss, a giant possessed doll named Angelic Amber. She hovers around and can move quickly at times. She has a jump slam attack and a twirl attack, both doing AoE damage. She also has an attack where she takes off spinning through the air, during which time she causes more damage when touched. Besides that though, she mostly just half floats, half stumbles around. Another easy fight. The Toy Master is a large, ship-like Heartless that floats in the air. It is surrounded by a shield that can stop magic if fired at too low of an angle. The Toy Master can charge up a large ball of energy and shoot it at Sora, though this can be blocked easily. It has a spinning charge attack that interestingly can also be blocked. It has an attack where it spins slowly around the map, firing rockets. These rockets can't be destroyed with magic or melee, but they can be blocked, which destroys them, though it's easier to just dodge roll away. You need to try to get on top of the Toy Master as often as possible to attack its head. This can be done by either jumping on one of the bouncing toys floating around, or running up one of the constantly shifting toy buildings and blocks, or just lock on and start swinging until Sora kind of auto-moves to the right height. The Toy Master will try to defend itself when Sora is on top of it, spitting out a flurry of rockets, or using a lightning attack that you can see it charge up with its antenna that causes more damage and knockback in a large area around it. It can also just flip itself quickly, though this only serves to push Sora back and doesn't cause any damage. After a while, it will go into its second form. The sky turns dark, the surrounding toy pieces float in the air, and the Toy Master itself floats much higher than before and surrounds itself with a ring of lightning that doesn't seem to do any damage. Getting on top of the Toy Master is a bit trickier here, but the bouncing toys are still around, and you can also use Air Step, which is a kind of game mechanic that exists to allow Sora to zip around. It will still use rockets and the electrical attack here. It can also turn into a giant tornado and fly into Sora, doing a decent amount of damage. This, however, can be dodged or even blocked, and the camera just goes crazy every time it charges by. After a tornado attack, the stage returns to normal and everything is the same as it was as in the first stage. I'm not sure how many times it will cycle between these two stages, but for me, it only stayed in this first stage again for a short time and then went back into the Dark Sky stage, and I dispatched of it shortly thereafter. This is the most complex boss fight thus far, however it still wasn't much of a challenge. Next, we're in the tangled world of the kingdom of a word that I'm not sure I'm allowed to say anymore. An interesting semi-mid-boss here is the Carriage. This one, like many, teeters on that line between mid-boss and just a somewhat stronger regular enemy, but since there's not much else in this world, here you go. Chaos Carriage starts out as a battle tower, which can be commandeered by any nearby power wilds. Once all the power wilds are dealt with, the tower transforms into a three-part carriage drawn by a horse creature. It now has a charge attack and a slam attack. It can also swing its carriage around in a spin attack. It telegraphs its attacks by rearing up a bit, but you don't have long to prepare yourself if you're mid-attack. Once its health is depleted, it will lose a tower and gain full health again. It will do this 2 more times, so to fully take out Chaos Carriage, you have to take down its health a full 3 times. The Heartless of Mother Gothel, the Grim Guardianess, is the boss of the kingdom of... She can swing her many arms in a forward-reaching attack, telegraphing with a short wind-up animation. She also has a dive that I think throws up dust or something for a few seconds that can deal damage if you're caught in it. You can also get these birds that behave more like a swarm than a flock. These can also be blocked. Occasionally she'll change things up by teleporting to the top of the nearby tower. You'll have to make your way towards her, but she won't make that easy. The Guardianess will summon a maze of vines around Sora while also dropping fruit bombs from the sky that explode after bouncing. After making it to the tower and dealing some damage to the Guardianess, she will return to the ground and back to her old tactics, but this time with one more move added. She summons several flowers that, if you get too close, will wrap you in vines. The vines slow you down and tether your movement, but worst of all, if you don't break free from them in time, she'll reel you in and perform a devastating attack. The flowers are kind of a pain to deal with, so I opted just to not even get near them and focus on the Guardianess. After one more tower climbing sequence, I was able to finish her off, no problem. Unfortunately, there are no real mid-bosses in Monsteropolis, and the boss that we do encounter, the Lump of Horror, uses much simpler tactics than the previous boss. At first it can't be attacked at all, instead you have to take out the hands that spawn around it. These hands are slow moving but can spawn and throw fireballs at the party. Once the hands have been dealt with, the Lump of Horror can be damaged normally but will also defend itself. It can shoot out a fireball, which is actually a collection of smaller fireballs clumped together. It can also shoot out a trio of slower moving fireballs that follow their target for a short time. It can create rain clouds that follow around and occasionally shock a target. The shocks don't seem to cause any damage, but they can temporarily stun or interrupt attacks and combos. Of course, it has the classic charge attack, in which it charges 3 times, then usually punctuates the third charge with a fireball. As is also the usual, it has a second phase that it goes into temporarily. Simply transitioning into this phase causes it to spawn many lump projectiles. It also spawns many more sludge hands all around the arena. The ones on the inside should be taken out quickly, as they can throw fireballs that can get in the way of attacking the main lump. The hands on the outside aren't too problematic unless you find yourself near them. The lump will occasionally flap its wings to push you back and put you in that exact situation. The flapping otherwise doesn't cause damage unless you're too close and they actually hit you. After that, it will, surprise, revert to its original phase, only this time it seems to slide 4 times instead of 3 during its charge attack. After this, it's the usual cycle between phases until finishing it off in phase 1 again. In lieu of real mini-bosses, we have a slew of glorified regular enemies, but our true mid-boss here is Marshmallow, or as I like to call him, Snowy the Frostman. Besides a few basic claw swipes, Snowy also has a breath attack that does damage and can leave a character frozen for a short time. It has a jump attack where it jumps really high into the air and creates a shockwave when it lands. If you're something of a video game player, you might have a little bit of knowledge about how opposing elements work, which can be useful here, as fire magic can temporarily stun Snowy. There's also a unique situation command here where you can sneaky sneak smack Snowy with a tree. This will actually leave Snowy in a down state for a while, allowing you to wail on it. After taking a couple HP bars down, Snowy will undergo a slight transformation in which ice crystals spike out from all over its body, acting as armor, which is essentially another health bar. During this time, it will only attack with its claws, swiping several times each. Take out the armor and it's back to the normal fight, but as you might have guessed by now, you'll see this armor phase one more time. Once it's completely drained of health, the fight ends, but it's not the last time we'll be seeing Snowy. The boss of Arendelle is Sköll. Sköll, like any wolf or wolf-like creature, loves to dash, which is its variant of the charge attack. Sköll in general jumps around a lot and moves quickly, making hitting it difficult. Its standard claw attack has a huge range, a consequence of being such a large boss. It will sometimes howl, which pushes characters back, then follows it up with a tailspin that summons mini skull/spirit things. These will fly around and harass you, but thankfully can be taken out with 1 or 2 hits. It can shoot pink projectiles that explode into a vision-obscuring dust when they hit, or if blocked, the dust only lasts a few short seconds. Probably the best part about this fight is that Snowy has now teamed up with Sora, and we can even ride on top of him to do battle with Sköll. Snowy does huge damage to Sköll, which is extremely helpful as Sköll is otherwise somewhat difficult to hit and it has a ton of HP. During its phase 2, Sköll calls down a giant dark orb from the sky as it rains down dark beams and more of those spirit things fly around. There's also a timer now present. Once the timer hits 0, you can perform a situation command to repel the orb. Or you can miss the command prompt and just tank it like I did, but I don't recommend that if you like having HP. Successfully repelling the orb will also do a bit of damage to Sköll. Sköll's new second phase 1 attack is a jumping spin attack. This is probably the toughest boss so far in terms of how hard it is to hit and how much HP it has. Sadly, Snowy gives his life trying to protect Sora. I think so. This looks like death, right? Rest in peace, Snowy. We will always remember you. We next find Sora and the gang in the Caribbean, or the Caribbean. The first semblance of a mini-boss is Raging Vulture. It mostly just flies around and spawns minions that try to dive bomb us, though it can also shoot out fireballs and has an explosive spin attack if you get too close. we ride atop one of the aforementioned minions, firing either a rapid burst shot or a slow-moving but higher damaging torpedo, although both can't be fired at the same time. After dealing enough damage, the Vulture will be KO'd, during which time it can still be damaged with guns, but also gives us the opportunity to climb on top of it. After a button prompt sequence to climb towards its head, we can then attack. The Vulture only has one attack at this point, which is a Fire Breath attack that can be dodged by creating a barrier by holding the correct button. We alternate between hacking and blocking, and after taking enough damage, the Vulture throws us off, and it's back to phase 1. If you fall down, you can simply step lock your way back onto a minion, but honestly, only an idiot would fall. Simply repeat these 2 phases again, and it's game over. For the Vulture, I mean. There are a few battles before we get to Kraken. There's another minor boss, the Lightning Angler, which as far as I know is a unique Heartless, but it's again more like a glorified regular enemy. And there's also a ship battle that one could argue is kind of a mini-boss, but there's not really much to it. If you've played Assassin's Creed 4, you've pretty much seen it already. So let's skip to the next fight, the Kraken. We're in the ship for this one. Our only attack is our cannons. We also have a defensive move in Water Wall that blocks all incoming damage. The fight isn't even really against the Kraken. As far as I can tell, the poor creature doesn't even attack us, it just tries to defend itself. The biggest threat is the Flying Dutchman that continually pops up to harass us. Dealing damage to the Dutchman, however, helps build our ship's focus so we can use stronger attacks. This sequence is simple and really only serves to act as a lead-in fight to the true boss, Davy Jones. Davy Jones is our first humanoid-type boss battle. Unfortunately, he doesn't have many interesting attacks, mostly just regular old physical attacks. He can teleport around at seemingly Mach 20. Sometimes he'll stand in the middle of the stage with an invulnerable aura around him, until someone attacks. An attack which he will always counter, but at least he loses the aura instantly. He can also teleport to the ship's bow and summon a dark vortex under the player that follows them around. If you don't move out of the way in time, a tentacle will violently sprout up from the vortex, grabbing and throwing you and causing damage. His phase 2 is a bit more interesting. Davy Jones moves himself out of range and summons a bunch of tentacles to attack the ship. The tentacles slap down at the characters and can even grab hold of them, squeezing for a bunch of damage. DJ will also continue to spawn the dark vortex tentacles during this phase. After taking out 3 of the giant tentacles, it's back to just wailing on him in phase 1. However, the next time we enter phase 2, Deej doesn't run and hide. He stays to fight along with the giant tentacles. I decided just to focus on taking him out and ignore the tentacles as best I could. He really doesn't do anything new here, so it's easy to finish him off. DJ is really easy to lock into combos, which prevents him from doing anything. So it's possible he might have had some other moves that I didn't get a chance to see, but I highly doubt it, and even if so, we're probably not missing much. The fight may have been underwhelming, but it's more than made up for in the cutscene that follows, which just looks absolutely beautiful. As an aside, Davy Jones here has probably my favorite character model in any video game I've seen in a while. San Fran Sokyo has what I would consider 2 final bosses. The first is Darkubes, a swarm of shape-shifting macrobots. To take its health down, you have to attack the core. When Darkubes turns red, it is invulnerable to attacks. It can turn into a giant fist and launch itself towards a target. This attack will leave the core exposed as it waits for its cubes to reassemble. Also, funnily enough, it can be blocked. Darkubes can also turn into a 10-armed cannon. In this form, it fires a series of cubes, first 3 consecutive cubes, then it spins and fires 3 more, and then spins 1 more time and fires 4 at the same time. Sometimes it will turn into a red sphere and rise into the sky, a red beam shining down from it that follows its target. If you're near the beam when it drops, it will smack into you, dealing damage and trapping you in cubes for a short time. You can also take a flat, thin shape and spin in and out of the arena quickly. After Darkubes is dealt with, it's on to Dark Baymax. This is a less traditional boss fight as we're riding around on regular Baymax for the duration and are limited in our attack options. The first half of the fight plays somewhat like an on-rail shooter. We chase Dark Baymax through the city as he spits out cubes and lasers to get in our way. Dark Baymax can also turn around and shoot at us with his own cannon. Eventually we come to a stop and face Dark Baymax head on. DB has a swipe-swipe lunge physical combo. He also has a dash that leaves orange cubes in its wake that move slowly towards the player and can cause damage on contact, but disappear after a short while. He can also summon black cubes that move slowly towards us, also causing contact damage, and he can still use the cannon shot which he used during the chase sequence. When his health gets low, DB does this thing, where his wings grow out and he summons more of those orange cubes. In this form, his attacks become faster, he flies around more quickly, and now likes to dash around towards the player, again leaving orange cubes in his wake. He still summons the black cubes, but now he summons 4 at a time, and they're rocket-propelled, more like missiles, moving much faster. He gains another new move where he launches projectiles into the air that rain down shortly thereafter. While still not very difficult, this was a fun battle that actually changed things up. Anti-Aqua teleports around the arena constantly and has several attacks in which she makes duplicates of herself, often combined with teleportation. She can disappear and suddenly teleport in as 3 Aquas, charging at Sora with her Keyblade, acting as a ramming shield. A similar attack is when the 3 Aquas appear next to each other and simultaneously fire projectiles at Sora. And the third of these kinds of attacks involves 3 Aquas appearing and sliding into Sora whilst doing a spinning Keyblade attack. She can also do all 3 of these attacks as a combo in that order, disappearing for about a second and teleporting in between each attack. She can also do any of those moves alone as 1 Aqua, but will only combo with clones. She has a move where she summons 2 other clones and spins around almost like an ice skating trio, as a white whirlwind surrounds them and a giant ice crystal forms above their heads, shooting ice shards at Sora. She will also form clones around Sora in a circle, all firing projectiles towards the middle. Sometimes she'll just make like 10 clones that walk around aimlessly. If you attack or bump into them, they disappear unless it's the real Aqua, though I never figured out if there's a way to tell which one is real. She will also summon these giant ice crystals that will fly towards Sora 2 at a time and deal huge damage. I found these easier to block than to dodge. When she's not attacking or teleporting around, she has a state where she just sort of walks around aimlessly, just like when she has 10 duplicates, except it's just her. This is the best time to try to attack her, though she will still teleport randomly in this phase. Definitely one of the harder fights thus far, but once you learn her attacks, it's really not that bad. We get to fight Vanitas here, as Aqua, though she seems far less interesting to use than, say, Anti-Aqua was to fight. We can't use any of those cool teleportation or cyclone moves, though her Spellweaver form has this finisher which is at least something. Vanitas' attacks are very straightforward. He jumps around a lot and teleports, but nowhere near as much compared to Anti-Aqua. He really likes to teleport right above Aqua and drop down with a powerful attack that forms ice spikes at the end. He has a particularly strong swing where his blade turns red, and he can shoot out a shockwave from his blade as well. He can jump into the ground and emerge under the player with a fiery explosive attack. He also shoots an extremely slow-moving fireball projectile. Something I realized about halfway through the previous fight with Anti-Aqua and confirmed it during this fight. The best strategy for these humanoid fights is to just try to lock them into combos and not even give them a chance to do anything, which kind of diminishes the fun. Before I stopped getting my hind end handed to me in these fights, I was trying to be fancy, dodging, parrying, using magic wisely, and generally strategizing on the go to match my opponent's moves as they come. Instead, the optimal strategy reduces all that to whack with Keyblade, use magic to heal when needed. With that knowledge, I ended Vanitas quickly. Before moving on, I go back and grab all of the lucky emblems and treasures, netting me some powerful items, including one which enables the infinite mana trick, though it's sadly not truly infinite without going into extreme detail. With a few interactions of items and abilities, and with a little bit of setup, you can cast usually extremely expensive magics dozens of times before running out of mana, as long as you don't break the combo. So once we have that set up, there's a spot in the story where we encounter an area with infinitely spawning Heartless. Infinite mana plus infinite enemies equals time to power level. Now I wasn't planning on getting max level, but the more I did this, the more refined my methods became and the easier it was to burn through levels, and it was so satisfying to just melt hordes of enemies. Some might disagree with this decision, but it's my playthrough, so I don't really care. In fact, I think it helped, as it allowed me to let the following fights play out as long as possible without worry about dying, so that I can provide the viewer with more information. I'll try not to overstate the ease of the following fights any more than they already would have been, but just know that I did max out my level here before continuing. Kind of the last thing we have to do before getting into the endgame is to take out the Lich, though it's again more like one of those glorified regular enemy fights. For story reasons, we have to follow it through all the worlds we've previously visited, but it's not too noteworthy. Then there's this whole thing, and it's pretty fun, but barely what I call boss, so moving on. We've now reached the final stretch of the game. We'll be spending a ton of time here in the Keyblade Graveyard, where we'll be doing a sort of boss rush. Here we're given a choice between which of the two battles we want to do first, so I arbitrarily chose the fight with Ansem, Dark Riku, and Xigbar, and we fight all three of them at the same time for this. Ansem is probably the least interesting of the trio. He flies around slowly, sometimes casting a laser shield over himself, or casting orbs that shoot lasers at a target. After a minute or two, he just up and leaves the fight. Dark Riku will use several physical combos. One of his combos finishes with an attack that shoots out 2 beams of purple flames on the ground. Another starts with him shooting a circular projectile from his blade and following up with a close the distance attack. He casts a dark void under the player that follows them around, and spike claws will rise up from them if you don't get out of the way after a short time. He summons triangular mines that explode if you get too close, or after a short time, and when his health is low, he'll start using an attack where he repeatedly drops in on Sora, bringing with him bolts of lightning, and ends by casting several more lightning bolts. Unlike Riku, Xigbar doesn't use any traditional physical combos. When he's on the ground, he walks around slowly, but will spend a lot of time teleporting through the air. He attacks with his gun. If I counted right, he has 12 bullets and he needs to reload it when they've all been expended. He usually fires them in a volley of about 6 or so, and they can be reflected back towards him. If they hit, he'll be stunned for a short time, leaving him open to a good smacking. Besides the pink bullets, he will also sometimes teleport in the air, then shoot out several bullets that can stick to the ground and explode if you touch them. They can also cause damage if they hit someone before reaching the ground, meaning they can't be blocked or reflected. Xigbar also has a low health move where he flies to the middle of the arena and shoots an arrow into the sky. The shot itself creates a shockwave that pushes Sora back, and a rain of arrows starts to fall, starting at the center then working its way outwards in a ring. The two have a dual attack that they will occasionally do together. Both teleport next to each other, and Riku casts his Void Claw, while Xigbar shoots his sticky, explodey bullets. Each will continue to use the same tactics, even when the other is defeated, though the dual attack will become much less threatening. When you defeat one of them, there will be a little cutscene and you'll just be left with the other one. The second battle that I could have chose to do first but didn't is Luxord, Larxene, and Marluxia. Try to say that 5 times fast. Also Xemnas is there. For the first half, they're all just doing random attacks as Xemnas just floats there, creating this really unnecessary barrier. After a few minutes of fighting, Xemnas empowers Luxord or something somehow. Then there's a sequence where Luxord surrounds the arena with cards, and we have to attack the card he's hiding in. Attacking any other cards causes them to explode, and Luxord will pop out and shuffle himself into a new card. This is fairly simple, especially given that you can tilt the camera to see exactly where he is, but the finicky lock-on can make miss-swinging easy. Larxene and Marluxia attack Sora the whole time, and you can't really damage them, so you just have to focus on the card game. Once you find his card, you're free to attack Luxord, who doesn't put up much of a fight. After taking some damage, he'll flee into another card, and you have to find him again. He doesn't have much HP, so just repeat this process of finding and attacking him, and once he's out of the way, King Mickey joins the party, and now it's a proper 2v2. Larxene uses a lot of attacks that are hard to dodge. She has a short physical attack combo that ends with shooting out electric knife waves. She uses a teleporting jump attack and teleports around a lot in general. For her dual attack with Marluxia, she transforms into lightning, jumping around wildly, leaving a trail of damaging electricity, changing back into physical form to attack occasionally, and ending with a huge lightning AoE attack. Marluxia moves slowly and teleports around the arena. He'll teleport in for a big, slow 2-part combo, which he'll attempt a third hit if you're knocked into the air. When dark clouds surround him, he goes into a multi-hit combo. For his half of the dual attack, Marluxia takes an energy form. He turns into a giant spinning blade, spinning in and out of the arena, and finishes with a huge AoE attack. Unlike Larxene, pretty much all of his attacks are easy to dodge. Just like in the Riku and Xigbar fight, when you knock one out of battle, the other will continue to use the same tactics. After those two three-ways are out of the way, it's time once again to choose which battle we want. I flipped a coin, so it's off to help Aqua and Ventus first. For this one, we're fighting Terra-Xehanort and Vanitas. Terra-X uses a long physical combo that ends with a strong downswing into the ground with an AoE splash. He also has a sliding dash attack with a very long range. Like most others we've fought this far, he'll sometimes teleport himself away. He can shoot out purple bullets, kind of like Xigbar's pink ones. Sometimes he will summon a Heartless that will pop in for a second and attack the target, then disappears. A few seconds later, a circular void will appear under the target, and a dark figure pops up to attack, which I assume is the Heartless that had just disappeared. When his health gets low, he starts to glow and summons the Heartless as he completely disappears himself. The arena turns dark and there's a wall of lightning that damages you if you run into it. Meanwhile, the Heartless is attacking you and it also seems to be invulnerable. I think you're just supposed to dodge here, but that can prove challenging. If there's a trick to doing something other than trying to avoid everything here, I couldn't figure it out. I was also bad at avoiding. The Heartless finishes with a huge AoE attack that I'm not sure is even possible to dodge or avoid in any way. As for Vanitas, well, as far as I can tell, he uses all the same moves as when we fought him before with Aqua, save for his low health move. Here he rides around the arena atop a wave of Keyblades. He uses the wave to shoot out icy projectiles, then will charge through the arena with it, and finally ends by shooting out arms of Keyblades at you. Unlike Terra's low HP attack, you can actually damage him here. Magic seems to be the way to go. This is overall an easy enough attack to avoid, but it's made harder if Terra is also running around harassing you. There's not really a dual attack here, but after you've knocked one person out, whoever you left alive will start round 2 with their low HP attack. Next is Saïx and Xion, with Axel and Kairi joining us this time. Saïx uses a couple several hit combos, one of which sends out an AoE shockwave on every successful hit that damages anyone that touches it, finishing with a strong hit. He has a 3-hit combo where each hit sends out damaging beams, finished by throwing his weapon. He also has a charge rush and follow-up hit attack, and likes to jump in the air and toss his weapon at his opponents. Xion uses aggressive, powerful, and glowy attacks, but only when she's in a berserk state, which seems to come and go in intervals. It doesn't seem to be related to the meter in the top left, and Saïx seems to be in berserk mode the entirety of the fight. Xion has a cool looking move where she zips around the arena in a huge attack, swinging her weapon, constantly radiating a blue fire AoE ring as she goes. She can jump into the air and slam the ground for a huge AoE splash, or use a dash attack that leaves trails of blue flame in the wake. When powered down, her attacks are less impressive. She uses a few short physical combos and can throw her blade as a projectile. Also, while powered down, she'll sometimes use an uppercut to launch her target into the air, teleport above them, and then smack them back down into the ground. After the berserk meter fills up, there's a bit of a cutscene, and suddenly Roxas shows up, and Xion switches sides. Now we need to take out Super Saiyan Saïx. This time the meter is more important. When it's full, he'll be in Super Saiyan mode, and when it runs out, he'll have to rest for a little while until it gets to half full, then he'll fight in regular form again until the meter is completely full, then he'll go Super Saiyan again, and fight like that until the meter runs out, and then it repeats the cycle. At least I think that's how it works. In this phase, his weapons now float around him constantly, and he basically just starts using the moves that Xion used in the previous phase, using similar variants of Xion's charging constant AoE attack, ground slamming AoE splash, and the dash attack that leaves beams in its wake. He'll add to his own move pool a 3-part combo in which he slams the ground, sending forward 3 beam rays, then teleports and does the same thing, then teleports one last time and hovers in the air as he sends out a wave of beams in 8 directions. He'll also use a new attack where he jumps into the air, throws his weapons down around him, then causes a huge explosion centered around him, detonating the weapons to make an even bigger explosion. When his berserk meter runs out, he'll become powered down and only have a few physical attacks and can throw his blade. This fight can be pretty tough as Saïx hits really hard, but as long as you take advantage of his downtime, you should have relatively little problem. We're almost ready for the final battle, but the Xehanorts 3 stand in our way. All throughout this fight, we jump in and out of a phase where all of the enemies disappear and a swarm of Keyblades fly around the arena that we have to dodge. This lasts for a short while, and then everyone will return to the arena with what I call a group attack. Some of their attacks are exclusive to this group attack phase, and they will continue to use the group attacks even after their teammates have been taken out. Even when not using a group attack, everyone hits rather hard, so let's break down their strategies one by one. First, let's look at Ansem. Ansem floats around a lot, teleporting away from the action and taking a more indirect fighting approach than the other two. He uses a laser shield that damages on touch and will summon 3 small orbs that orbit a target and shoots lasers at them, the 2 moves that we've previously seen in the Riku and Xigbar fight. though sometimes he'll use a deadlier version of the orb lasers during a group attack. He can summon several triangular proximity mines, sometimes forming them in a ring around the target, and can make a very large ring of mines during a group attack. He often creates a dark void that follows the player and will claw at them after a short time. You might notice that some of his moves are similar to Dark Riku's, which is a nice little touch. Ansem also has a huge explosion attack that he will only do as part of a group attack. Moving on to Xemnas. Xemnas uses a lightsaber. He floats around a bit, but not as much as Ansem. He often goes into a large combo where he starts with spinning roundhouse kicks, goes into a saber attack, and ends with a spinning blade attack that lifts off the ground, and one final kick at the apex. He can also create 4 large damaging electric orbs that move in a target's direction, then stop and sit there for a few seconds before disappearing. He also summons a ring of large orbs around a target that hover for a few seconds, then turn into homing projectiles and shoot at the player. He'll create a huge ring of these orbs during a group attack. Xemnas also has an exclusive group attack, which is a very powerful 2-hit combo that leaves an X scar on the ground. Young Xehanort, watch him whip. He doesn't have as many moves as Xemnas, but he attacks aggressively. He moves quick and teleports using shadow clones. He can use a whip combo, which can pull you around. He can also freeze you, though this is more common in group attacks. Young X also has 2 exclusive group attacks. In the first, he lassos you with his whip. It can be dodged, but once caught, I don't think you can escape. This will hold you in place, leaving you vulnerable to whatever the other 2 might be doing. For his other exclusive attack, he creates a large circle on the ground. If his whip hits you, time slows down briefly, and you're hit many times, taking the damage once time goes back to normal. This fight is significantly tougher than anything else so far, as each opponent has strong attacks that complement each other's fighting style. I chose to focus on just one at a time. Xemnas and Young Xehanort can be especially annoying if they're both targeting Sora, so it's a good idea to try to lure them into a 1v1. With the defeat of the Xehanorts 3, the Keyblade Graveyard boss rush comes to an end, but we're not quite done. That's right, it's time to finally take on the big man himself. During this fight, Xehanort will be shifting around the arena. He flies around, and while we have the option to stay up high, I decide to bring him back down to the ground as air combat can be a bit janky sometimes. He doesn't have a whole lot of moves here, but he hits hard and he hits fast. His moves include an explosion of fireballs, another explosion of fireballs preceded by sucking everyone in around him like a vortex for a few seconds, a dashing combo, and a spinning attack. He does this annoying thing where he summons green orbs that spin around Sora, and after a few moments they teleport him in front of Xehanort, leaving him vulnerable and open to attack. His most flashy move is the one where he summons a huge pillar of fire down from the sky in the middle of the map. While the main pillar exists, Xehanort will cycle between attacking and teleporting to the middle of the pillar and fire out several rings of explosive projectiles. Just as the main pillar dissipates, Xehanort rushes to the bottom of it and unleashes a very large AoE attack. After taking his HP down some, we transition into an underwater arena, and the fight continues. Here, Xehanort can summon large orbs of fire on our location. He still shoots out his fiery explosives, and this time summons 4 spinning fire pillars that will merge into a large central pillar, just like the last one. Again, Xehanort will teleport to the middle of it, but this time he shoots much more projectiles with a higher spread, and it actually looks a lot cooler. Even though we can use Sea Fire and Sea Thunder, we can't use Sea Cure, as that would just be ridiculous, so I tried to end this phase as quickly as possible before I took too much damage. For the final phase, we're forced into the air whether we want to be or not. Xehanort mostly uses the same moves as in the first phase, though he's faster, and he doesn't wait around to call the Fire Pillar. He does have one new move where he turns into a giant sphere that sucks everything in surrounding him for several seconds, then explodes doing damage. He can also summon a pillar directly at Sora's location. The entire fight is fairly straightforward. As long as you can dodge his fiery attacks while maintaining decent offense, this fight should be cake. After the previous fight, we're almost instantly thrown into what is, believe it or not, the final boss of the game. Phase 1 is pretty chill. Xehanort's favorite attack is a combo which he links together by teleporting through keyhole portals. It looks neat, but is quite slow and easy to dodge or block. He has a combo that he ends by smacking you up into the air, then keyhole portaling above and smacking you back down. On rare occasion, he'll use a strong magic attack where he throws his Keyblade down towards you, freezing anyone in range. Before even having a chance to thaw, 2 large projectiles will spawn basically right on top of you, then a strong lightning attack will close in from the arena's edges, as lightning also strikes from the sky. This attack is extremely difficult to avoid and does a ton of damage. After hurting his health, he hastens to Phase 2. Xehanort adds a new move to his arsenal, in which he rains down a volley of large purple projectiles. His keyhole portal attack is much faster, and he is overall more aggressive. After taking this phase's health down, Xehanort sucks the light out of Sora, forcing Rage form. During this time, the arena is surrounded in pillars of light that will move around and harm you if you touch them. You can't deal any damage to Xehanort here, but after attacking him enough, you will return to normal. Then he does this weird thing where you're in a strange representation of the Organization 13 throne room, and phantom versions of Xehanort fly at Sora while he's shot at with beams of damaging lasers. I don't know if you're supposed to just dodge here, but I got smacked around a lot because I'm not good at video games. After this sequence, things go back to normal, and when you've taken Xehanort's health down as low as it will go, which isn't really that difficult, simply use the prompted action command to finish it once and for all. But wait, there's more! There is one final challenge. This is Dark Inferno, an optional and extremely powerful boss. Dark Inferno really only has about 3 attacks. The one that will give you the most trauma is his physical combo. He can cover great distances with it, hitting multiple times, knocking Sora into the air, stunning him so that you have to use an aerial recover, and he can chain into another combo after ending one. At the end of a combo, he'll either use a spinning attack, or he'll teleport away quickly so that you can't even hit him at the end of his combo animation. These physical hits can be blocked, but there are only very small windows to interrupt them. He hits extremely quick and deals massive damage. His other attack is a large circular AoE attack that not only does damage, but leaves Sora stunned for several seconds with no way to recover except waiting it out. Finally, he can summon a bunch of dark orbs that orbit Sora for a short time and then launch out at him. They can be blocked or dodge rolled away from, but both methods are tricky, and more often than not, I was hit by most or all of them. My strategy was to try to slowly chip away at his health, using magic to heal, then play extremely safely until my magic refilled, then start attacking him again. This worked for the most part, at least in the first half of the fight. I realized that if he caught me in a combo, there was a short opportunity to use an aerial recovery, then an aerial dodge to get out of the way of his next attack, which left him open for my own attack. The problem with that was that it required me to get hit at least twice first, but it's not like I had much of a choice, as he seemingly always connected with his combos. Dark Inferno is also vulnerable to magic. In retrospect, I realized that I could have chipped away more of his health with magic until my MP was low, then save the remainder for Cure, as Cure only uses whatever MP that you have left. I used situation commands as much as I could. I happen to have the Mirage Staff, whose finisher has a really long animation, which I use in emergencies to pass time to allow my MP to regen, as Dark Inferno can't hit me during the finisher. It also did a decent amount of damage. I also got lucky and was able to use Rage Form for this fight, which helped me bring down some of his HP in the first half. After taking away about half of his HP, we go to the second half of the fight. Not much changes here, but what does change is enough to make the fight at least twice as hard. I'm not sure if any of his attacks are actually faster, but the time in between attacks is. Also, before, when he summoned his Dark Orbs, Dark Inferno would disappear until they were gone. Now he sticks around and continues attacking. The biggest problem, besides how much damage Dark Inferno does, is the fact that he is extremely difficult to hit. He either zips away as you get close to him, or has already started his own attack, which is nigh uninterruptible. Once you do start a combo, you can get some good hits in, but even getting there can be a pain. Now this fight was the most difficult in the game for me, even at max level. He got my HP down several times, though I will say that I defeated him twice in a row because I forgot to record the first fight, both times without dying, with little to no investment in upgraded gear, and without using consumable items. So there you have it, all the bosses in Kingdom Hearts 3. Overall, the game was pretty easy, even before I cheesed to max level. A friend of mine suggested I start on Proud Mode right from the beginning, and now, after playing through normal, I can kind of see why. But you know, now if I do decide to go back and up the difficulty, I at least know what tactics to expect from the enemies. And you do too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Boss Raid.